Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Happy Wednesday. It's a wonderful Wednesday here at the Russ Joy Show. As we have come to learn over the past little bit of time, we got the dual Bucky's buck crackers out here having themselves a day. Welcome in. There's so much to get to today. I'm trying a new setup. I tried a new setup on Monday, and it kind of worked and it kind of didn't. So I was trying to fix it, and we'll see if it works. Anyway, welcome in. There's so much to get to today, but I want to start off by offering an apology for Monday's show. Because on Monday's show, I didn't go hard enough on the Eagles. And I probably should have. I probably gave them a little bit too much grace. Or at least I thought that until I watched Hard Knocks on Tuesday night. So allow me to just maybe recalibrate a little bit, okay? So we all watched the Eagles shit the bed against the Cowboys, right? We all watched it happen. Horrific. 21-0 lead in the first quarter. They go on to score no more points. They lose on a last-second field goal, 24-21, and everybody hated themselves and hated each other. Then, on a short week, the Eagles went and took on the Chicago Bears, and they got dog-walked. I think that would be putting it very nicely. They got dog-walked. And Vic Fangio, who has been an absolute stud as a defensive coordinator for this team, looked outmatched by Ben Johnson. And so you go, all right, that kind of sucks. That hurts. Doesn't feel particularly good, but okay. And so we've all been kind of postulating, and we've all been kind of opining, and throwing out our thoughts and our latest sentiments around the team and whether or not any of it is fair and justified or not. And sports talk radio has become a cesspool that is even worse than I remember it being the last time I actually cared enough to pay attention to what a lot of the local people were saying. But there was something that happened on Hard Knocks that got response today. And I am still trying to wrap my head around why this person put out the take they did, but it was a horrible one. Now, there are two people who I think will go or have gone quasi-viral in Philadelphia for their takes based on what we saw in Hard Knocks. If you haven't watched the in-season Hard Knocks with the NFC East, I'd encourage you to go do that over on HBO Max or wherever you get your shows. It wasn't an incredible episode. It wasn't something that's like must-see TV, but there are a couple of narratives that got dispelled, at least from my view, by watching the show. Now, it was weird because when they said that they were going to do an in-season look with the NFC East, I thought that was going to be like, hey, first episode maybe kind of covers the first 5 or 6 weeks. Episode 2 picks up from there. And maybe by the time you get to the last episode of the in-season Hard Knocks, it's getting you ready for the playoffs. And then you kind of go your separate ways. This picked up with the Cowboys game. This picked up with Cowboys-Eagles. Now, maybe it's because two of the teams in the division have largely been irrelevant in the Giants and in the Commanders. I don't totally know what the thought process was, but they started with that Eagles-Cowboys game. And there are a few things that came out of that game that you go, not ideal. The Bears game, though, is where I think you're going to see some viral moments. So there is a clip going around right now of Spike Eskin over on WIP's afternoon show asking a caller, I think it was, when is the last time you saw Jalen Hurts talk to a wide receiver after a play? Like, almost either taking responsibility for it or just like when the series is over, seeing Jalen Hurts go over and talk to a wideout. Well, that myth or whatever got dispelled on Hard Knocks because we very clearly saw Jalen Hurts go over to Devontae Smith. Now, I want you to kind of go back to that awful Bears game. And there's a throw in that game where Jalen Hurts appears to throw behind Devontae Smith. And it was one of the things that people really got on Jalen Hurts' ass about was that he threw behind Devontae Smith on this very simple slant. And this slant would have taken Devontae Smith right into the end zone untouched. But what we learned is that, surprise, surprise, we, the viewers, we, the fans, we, the people who aren't in the huddle or part of the game plan, we don't actually know what happened in that moment. We can assume that Devontae Smith was going to run a slant and that Jalen Hurts just threw behind him. Bad on Jalen. However, we learn in Hard Knocks that he thought Devontae Smith was going to stop his route. So he threw to where he expected Devontae to be, not to the slant. And what you see, and we'll run the risk here of playing the clip on the show, because I think it's important that people have it. There is a clip from the show where they very clearly explain what these two guys saw. Now, again, Jalen appears to throw behind Devontae Smith. And I want you to hear what is said on the sideline between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith after a play that, again, would have easily gone for a touchdown, but in this case did not. Let's go over and listen to Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. Devontae's kind of like, hey, what did you see? And here we go. Here's Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith on the sideline.
I thought when I pointed like this, that's my fault. I thought you was going to settle down some more.
I think that's what we talked about.
So there's a moment before the play where Jalen Hurts made some kind of a hand gesture, and he thought that there was a communication understood with Devontae to stop his route. And Devontae said, no, because remember, like we talked about it, or we practiced, or whatever it was. So there's Devontae going up to Jalen saying, hey, what did you see? Jalen saying back to Devontae, this is what I thought was happening. Devontae saying back to Jalen, no, this is what I thought. So there you go. There's your communication. But this is the part that I think dispels some of the idea that Jalen Hurts doesn't ever take responsibility for what he does or says.
Fuck. It's a play I got to make. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. Here we go. We'll finish the next one. That's a play I make.
Okay. So can we now dispel the notion, at least, well, there are a few things there. One, I love the F-bomb out of Jalen Hurts. I love the emotion out of Jalen Hurts. We always see the very polished guy who kind of speaks like the modern day version of like a Confucius says, right? Jalen Hurts kind of speaks in motivational posters that you can find in your principal's office. So it's nice to actually see Jalen Hurts have fire to him and not just be that very polished guy that we see at press conferences. I think it also kind of dispels this notion that Jalen Hurts somehow thinks that he's above whatever's going on in the game and that he believes he's infallible. There you see the conversation between the wideout and the quarterback. And then the quarterback not only going, all right, yeah, you're right, but also walking up and down. And what we could see, well, when I froze it and then took it down, he's going over to Cam Jurgens, to Landon Dickerson, to the rest of the line, the rest of the offense. And he's owning up to it and saying, that's a play I got to make. That's a play I will make. We'll get it done next time. That to me is like the sign of a leader, right? Like that's not him looking at Devontae going, yo, dipshit, you should have known what this meant. You should know what that's on you. He didn't say that. He goes, all right, I got it. And then owns up, walks in front of his guys, walks in front of the offense and takes responsibility for not making the play. So isn't that something that some of the fan bases wanted? Isn't that some of like what people have been complaining about all season? He doesn't show emotion. He doesn't take responsibility. Oh, he missed Devontae Smith on a wide open slant. Well, now we have an idea of why he missed him. Now, there's another thing that's going to come out of Hard Knocks, and it's already making its way out. There's a terrible, horrible, no good take that came out today. And when you see who it came from, you will not be surprised. But there's this idea out there from at least one radio person in Philadelphia that the Eagles are lacking in self-awareness and that the Eagles are trying to pass off the blame for things going sideways on the fans and not looking at themselves. So we're going to go out to a radio host who I think just largely is wrong far more often than he's right. We'll go out to 97.5's morning show. Not to Sal Chunas, seems like a lovely guy. No, we're going to go to John Kincaid because John Kincaid had a dog shit take this morning, and it's so bad that we have to highlight it on the show. So John Kincaid is of the belief right now that the Eagles are tone deaf and that the Eagles are trying to pass it off as if everything that's going wrong right now and the narrative around the team, the Eagles are trying to blame the fans. All right, let's go listen to John Kincaid. Then we'll come back. We'll piece it all together.
One thing I do know is this. The Eagles' lack of self-awareness is incredible. Because there was guys, again, they know they're mic'd up. So they know they're wearing a mic. Hey, you know, Scott.
I already hate this, by the way. One, I hate the audio quality. Two, I hate this idea that, like, just because some of these guys get mic'd up, and we don't know how many of them are mic'd up. Do they mic up the whole team? Are there boom mics? Are there field mics? Like, okay. Anyway, these guys are mic'd up. So then we're supposed to believe that the entirety of the filming of Hard Knocks, these guys are now going to sanitize themselves and are going to restrict themselves and censor themselves because these mics are on. I would guess that a dude who's wearing a bunch of pads, who gets into the rhythm of practice and such, probably isn't thinking about the microphone he's wearing. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just a crazy guy. It's entirely possible. So first, we're pointing out the fact that these guys are mic'd up and that they should be more aware of what they're saying. Okay, let's continue.
A mic. Hey, you know, the sky's falling outside the building, right? You heard, right? You know, the same people who tell you we don't listen to the outside noise. Yeah. They're in there on the microphones and, oh, you know, all this drama.
Okay, we're going to pause there for a sec. You don't need to read a Marcus Hayes takedown piece. You don't need to listen to Joe Giglio talk about wondering if Tanner McKee is a better option at quarterback or what the offense would look like with Tanner McKee instead of Jalen Hurts. You don't need to listen to those things to be very, very acutely aware of the fact that the fan base is very upset. You don't need to read or to listen to everything to know that this fan base is upset. You don't need to read or listen to everything to know that the national media is looking at this Eagles team going, what the hell is happening? You don't have to consume any of that. You know why? Because it's everywhere. And even if the players themselves aren't listening to it, even if they're not reading it, someone in their family might be. Somebody in a group chat maybe. These guys are aware of the public sentiment around their team. And so here we go. John Kincaid. Already he's off base, but we'll continue.
They make it out as if the drama is coming from outside the building. Yeah.
A lot of what is being said is from the outside. The one thing that you can point to pretty consistently, early part in the season, maybe until the last few weeks when he's had a lot of success, is A.J. Brown on social media and A.J. Brown's responses to some questions in the locker room. And to those maybe not being the best questions or being the kind that definitely pour some fuel on the fire. Okay, that is about the only questionable thing that you could say from within the Eagles locker room has been a drama-filled instance. We don't have a player right now who's come out and said something like Brandon Graham did last year about Hurts and A.J. Brown not having the same kind of friendship that they once did or being close like they once were. We don't have that, right? What you have is a team that very clearly seems upset, a team that very clearly doesn't seem in sync, but I wouldn't say that like the players themselves, with the exception really of A.J. Brown, has given you much to really run with. Saquon Barkley hasn't come out and said, this is a total waste of my time. The offensive coordinator is a dipshit, and I wish he was gone. Jalen Hurts isn't going out there throwing his receivers under the bus. The offensive line isn't saying Jeff Stoutland doesn't know how to coach us anymore. The defense isn't wondering why Jahad Campbell's snaps per game have dropped significantly over the past few weeks since Nakobe Dean's return. We don't have any of that. Nobody's openly questioning, does Adoree Jackson actually want to play football or not? Because it feels like every game, like second or third play, he's out like Jason Peters used to be. No, like a lot of the noise around the team is coming from the fan base that's upset, angry, by the sports talk radio hosts who are fanning the flames of the anger and the discord, by some of the writers who are writing some of the things that they are. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the team itself causing all the drama. So again, John Kincaid, that's, I think, 3 points now that he's off base on, but we'll go back out to him.
Dear Philadelphia Eagles, the drama is coming from inside the house. And what I saw last night is you somehow are going to try to spin this, that the drama is coming from your fan base. The drama is coming from inside the house. But you are going to try to deflect the blame. Own it. It's all yours. It's all yours.
Uh-huh.
And it was a waste of time. Hard Knocks is a waste of.
Okay, so dog shit take, but let's dissect why it's a dog shit take. I don't want to just once again on this show periodically bring John Kincaid's takes on here just to shit on John Kincaid. It's easy, but I'll do it like this. No, the drama, the anger, the fuel that's been added to the fire, the flames that have been fanned, that is not from the Eagles locker room. Try as John Kincaid may want to try to, I don't know, approach this with a rational, level-headed mindset, maybe. There is not a single soul right now that has come out from the Eagles locker room and said, I do wonder what Tanner McKee would look like with this offense. Not a single soul. The worst you can get, and as I'm kind of running it back here, the A.J. Brown comments and the Instagram posts, not ideal, not good. The people that I actually do think Kincaid maybe has a point on are the rats, right? The rats that we talked about a couple weeks ago that tend to run out to Diana Rossini or whomever else, whatever media person will listen and give a platform to. The rats that continue to go out and say, oh, there's some frustration with Jalen Hurts internally. The rats who are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to right the ship. That part, John Kincaid might be right. But I don't think that's exactly what's leading all the fodder here. The past week, right, since the Cowboys game and the Bears game, there has been a lot of discussion about whether or not Jeff Stoutland has lost his fastball as an offensive line coach. There has been conjecture about whether or not Vic Fangio got exposed by Ben Johnson, and if that's going to be something that other teams are going to be able to take advantage of going forward. There have been questions about whether or not Jalen Hurts is truly the guy to build around, or does he need a perfect team built around him? I saw Spike Eskin's clip from the afternoon show a day or two ago where he compared Jalen Hurts to Ben Simmons and said, well, people used to make the case that you had to build this perfect team around Ben Simmons to get the most out of him. And now it feels like you have to kind of build the perfect team around Jalen Hurts. I don't think it's a fair comparison. I understand to some extent where he's coming from. There are things Ben Simmons wouldn't shoot. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem to want to run. What we don't know is, with Ben Simmons, we know he didn't want to shoot. With Jalen Hurts, we don't actually know if it's that he doesn't want to run or if it's an edict that's been passed down from Sirianni and or Patullo. Like, you don't want your quarterback to take too many hits. Are they worried that Jalen Hurts is going to get hit too much if he decides to scramble more? Are they not calling designed runs because they don't want him to take additional abuse? And they know that in order for them to get to the peak, to get to the top of the mountain, they need Jalen Hurts to be healthy. I don't know. But here's the thing. Neither does any other sports radio host, any podcaster, even any writer. The only way to really know is to have a direct conversation with Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and or Kevin Patullo, whether it's on the record, off the record, on background, whatever it is. That's the only way to know for certain. What we can see game in and game out is that Jalen Hurts isn't running nearly as much as he used to, and that in order for this offense to be as dynamic as it can be, he probably does need to run more. That is true. That part of the Spike Eskin take is correct, but I wouldn't compare Simmons and Hurts in that, like, Simmons, who I have a soft spot for, and who actually went on Instagram the other day and said he would play in Philly for free. He just needs to get his body right. I don't think we ever questioned Jalen Hurts' desire to win or desire to get better. With Ben Simmons, it's easy because you could always come back and say, he never worked on that jump shot. He never seemed willing to work on that jump shot in games or to take threes in games, kind of put that nugget of doubt in the minds of the opposition. Hurts has not been like that. So I don't think it's really an apt comparison. I understand the idea of these guys might be refusing to do something that would fundamentally help the team, taking threes or running the ball more respectively. Now, I want to circle back to this idea that Kincaid kind of put out there about the issues with the locker room and the issues that the calls are coming from inside the house, the complaints, the drama is coming from inside the house. What did we learn a few weeks ago? I played it on the show. I did. Played it on the show. Jason Kelce talking about how Lane Johnson is one of his best friends, was one of his best friends during his playing days. And yet there was a time in an offseason where those guys didn't talk for weeks. I think he said for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, where there were comments about the Chip Kelly system and the Chip Kelly practices. We didn't know that. Now, that could be drama. Was that drama inside the house? It was. Did it ever bubble to the surface? No. Last year, Brandon Graham goes on WIP and says the thing about Hurts and A.J. Brown. Well, that was some stuff bubbling to the surface, and Brandon Graham didn't mean to cause a firestorm, but it very clearly did. I think a lot of the anger is coming from outside the house. I think that nothing could be further from the truth than this idea that this is all manufactured by the Eagles themselves. Is there drama? Sure. Are there disagreements? Sure. Is that part of any workplace? It absolutely is. Is it part of any locker room in any professional sports team? Indeed it is. This notion that the media or that the fans, but I would really put this more on the media, has no fault whatsoever in the dissolving, the eroding of confidence in this team is nonsensical at best. And I don't think he really believes it. If he does, he's a dolt. So actually, maybe he does believe it. Okay, so there's our goofy Eagles take. I'd encourage you guys to go watch Hard Knocks. There's part of me that kind of sits back and says, I'm willing to give the Eagles another week before I'm in like full-blown panic disaster mode. What we did get in those mic'd up moments is very clearly this belief that they are going to be able to figure it out. And what they're saying to one another in the facility over at NovaCare is what they are saying to the public in these scrums after games, before games, leading up to games during the week. They seem to have this belief that they're going to be able to get it figured out. Now, whether or not they will, I don't know. I would love to know. I would love to see the Eagles team get back to and maybe even win another Super Bowl. That would be swell. That would be at the top of my request list to good old Santa Claus. But what I do know is that you're not seeing a fundamentally different tone among the team on Hard Knocks versus what they're presenting publicly. Make of that what you will. I just realized, by the way, that I didn't have the comments on the screen, so now I got to throw the comments up here. Let me see. I'll try to jump around here real quick. Greg Bondarenko's here. Says, afternoon, Russ and friends. Hello. We'll get to some Flyer stuff. I saw some Flyer stuff here. Ford says his son wore his Buc-ee's hoodie to school yesterday. Good on him. Good on that kid. It's a good kid. Ford says, Kincaid reminds me of Large Marge in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Sort of a butch truck driver. Good God. Let's see. We have some more Flyer stuff. Here you go. ML Kraz 2152 says Phillies hood in December. Not even a Flyers or Sixers. All you need to know about Kincaid. It is kind of interesting because they do have the rights to the Flyers games and the Sixers games. And the Sixers had a huge win last night. You would think that maybe the Sixers hoodie would be the way to go. We're not going to judge John Kincaid on his choice of apparel, but it is an interesting thing. Chris Bruce 6170 says Ben Simmons can't even breathe the same air as Jalen. Jalen got us a chip, damn near 2. The city's a joke. Spike has a punchable face. Well, the punchability of a face is in the eye of the beholder. Here's what I will say, though. Again, I understand fundamentally this idea of like each guy refusing to do something that could help the team and make the team better. But my problem is I don't actually know if Jalen Hurts is unwilling to run. You know what I think would be the fair comparison? I will say this, and I fear the way that Amadeo will clip this later. I don't think it's fair to compare Jalen Hurts not running the ball to like Ben Simmons not shooting the ball. I think that it's actually a more fair comparison to look at Jalen Hurts versus Donovan McNabb. Because if you remember, Donovan early in his career had some of the best wheels in the entire league. He was incredible. He was a true dual threat quarterback. Later on in Donovan's career, he got to a point where it felt like he needed to prove the doubters wrong. The doubters who said he couldn't be a pocket passer. And it felt like as he bulked up, because make no mistake, Donovan bulked up throughout his career. As he got more and more bulked up and seemed to take more of the criticism of him not being a pocket passer to heart, that's when he stopped running the ball. And when he stopped running the ball, I think Donovan McNabb's overall effectiveness dropped. And the ability for the Eagles to go back to another Super Bowl beyond the one that he went to along with Terrell Owens, I think that that was a big part of it. So I would actually be more fearful that Jalen Hurts is choosing not to run because he's trying to prove the doubters wrong about him not being able to execute from the pocket. I hope that's not the case. I really do hope, and I think that Eagles fans should hope the same thing. I hope that the idea here is that Jalen Hurts isn't running designed runs or isn't scrambling as much because the coaches are saying, we need you to be healthy for the playoffs. We can't run the risk of you taking an unnecessary hit. But again, I don't know because I'm not there. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not on a text thread with Jalen Hurts or Kevin Patullo or Nick Sirianni or any of those guys to give a little bit of insight there. I do kind of wonder, though, why it seems none of the media covering the Eagles have kind of started to poke around that question, maybe ask on background, maybe get some off-the-record info from some of the people who would know. Is that why we're not seeing Jalen Hurts run? Just an idea. Chris over here, by the way, says, I think the same for the playoffs. That is correct. Let's see. Joey B says, Russ Joy's Bucky's Nutcracker is next level. Wow, thank you. Yeah, 2 of them. I got to put these upstairs, though. The kids want them in the house, so, you know. Joey also says, Russ needs to do the Bucky's tour in 2026, 2 shows from every Bucky's location. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know if any Bucky's will happen. I will tell you that if rumors are to be believed, I may be doing a show from the Sheets in Limerick when it opens, and I have gotten word that that is supposed to happen towards the end of January 2026. I would like something Sheets related on the desk too. I could have Bucky's and I could have Sheets. Wawa, no. Unless Wawa wants to sponsor the show, in which case, still probably not though. No offense to Wawa, just it's not that good anymore. Okay, that's the Eagles. That's the Hard Knocks portion of the program. Before we get to the Flyers, which is where we're going to kind of lead, because I want people to be able to kind of go from listening to this show to then transition to later in the day when we have 2 shows over on the Snow the Goalie channel. First, we have Snow the Goalie Radio at 5 o'clock at Chickies and Pete's in South Philly, just down the road from the Xfinity Mobile Arena. We have a 5 o'clock start tonight because then we have to go across the street and go do pregame at 7 o'clock. It's a 7:30 puck drop, but a 7 o'clock press row show as the Flyers play host to the Buffalo Sabres. So you're going to get a lot of Flyers talk today. But before we get there, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Tyrese Maxey balled out again last night. Tyrese Maxey's been an absolute killer this year. And while the Sixers are only 2 games over 500 as of Wednesday, December 3rd, the year of our Lord 2025, we have to acknowledge the fact that Tyrese Maxey is well into a true breakout superstar season. Last night, he drops another 35-point game, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and he does it in 29 minutes. I don't know what to tell you at this point. If you're not fully in on the Tyrese Maxey bandwagon, I don't actually know if there's any space left. But Maxey has been absolutely incredible this season. The only time that I think Tyrese Maxey has not looked like this superstar Tyrese Maxey is when he has Joel Embiid in the game, because I think that there's still that big brother, little brother dynamic between Embiid and Maxey. And there's part of me that wonders if Maxey kind of is like, well, if the big fella's playing, I got to get him the rock. I have to, because we don't have him all the time. And we need to like have him involved in like hitting some kind of rhythm, because if we are going to try to compete for the Eastern Conference, if we are going to try to make an NBA Finals, it's probably going to be with Joel Embiid playing some sort of role. There's part of me that feels like the only time that Maxey hasn't looked totally like himself, totally like the superstar, is when Embiid plays. But right now, Tyrese Maxey is 3rd in the NBA in scoring at 32.5 points per game. He's averaging 7.5 assists per game, which is 7th in the league. And he's averaging just under 5 rebounds per game. He has been an astonishing player to watch this year. And I think everybody knows I have been high on Tyrese Maxey for a very long time. None of this is new. But I think it's important to point out that this isn't just a flukish sort of thing where Tyrese Maxey is only effective at home. Because a lot of times you look at superstar players and you see that when they play at home, they have that good old-fashioned home cooking. And when they go on the road, sometimes they struggle a little bit or their numbers dip. I just want to give you some home road splits here real quick, okay? So far this season, the Sixers have played 20 games, 12 at home and 8 on the road. Would you believe me if I told you Tyrese Maxey shoots better from beyond the arc on the road than he does at home, 42.1% versus 36.4%? Would you believe me if I told you that shooting from the field in general, He's shooting better on the road than at home, 49.7% versus 45%. Would you believe me if I told you Tyrese Maxey averages more rebounds on the road, 5.5 versus 4.3 at home? Would you believe me if I told you that Tyrese Maxey somehow averages more points on the road, 34.8 points per game on the road, than he does at home with 30.9 points per game? What I'm trying to tell you is this. Tyrese Maxey isn't just a star player. He isn't just a very good player or a star player on a Sixers team. He's not just a very good or star player on an Eastern Conference team. He is cementing himself right now as one of the best guards, period, in the entire NBA. He will get, if this continues, he will get MVP votes. He will get MVP consideration. He won't win it, but he will certainly get votes this year. He could make an all-NBA team this year. I think that is totally within the realm of possibility. He has been that good. And if you just want to kind of take this for what it's worth as well, he has been incredibly strong and incredibly consistent. And it doesn't matter where they play. It doesn't matter when they play. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. He has given you consistent scoring, consistent playmaking, and all doing it while being a model representative of the organization. You have never in your life, unless I've missed something, you've never in your life heard a horror story about a fan interaction with Tyrese Maxey. We have never woken up in the morning to a 3 a.m. report that Tyrese Maxey was spotted at a strip club or spotted at a salacious place and that there was gambling and that there were drugs and we've never gotten that. We've never had there was this thing that was overheard. He said something derogatory. Nothing. He seems to be a model example of what an organization should want to build their team around. That is Tyrese Maxey. And then he gets out on the court. He's fun to watch. He's positive. He doesn't flop. He has a good head on his shoulders. You know, I will give credit here, and I think everybody should. Tyrese Maxey has a lot of praise and has had a lot of praise for James Harden. And I know that things ended really, really poorly with James Harden and Daryl Morey. I will give both James Harden and begrudgingly Daryl Morey a little bit of credit for this. Harden definitely took Maxey under his wing and definitely helped Maxey reach another level. I think Tyrese Maxey on his own would have been a very good player, maybe could have reached star potential. But there are elements to his game, slowing it down, change of pace, and obviously the step back three that he worked on specifically with James Harden. And so I don't know how people think about James Harden, feel about James Harden now in the aftermath, and it's been a while, right, since he played here. But like, I look back on the James Harden time with the Sixers, not fondly necessarily, but I look back on it and I kind of smile because, like, I like James Harden. I enjoy James Harden. There are things about him that, like, if you're playing against him, are frustrating. The foul hunting, the foul merchant, the free throw merchant, right? But you have to give James Harden a lot of credit for what he did to help Tyrese Maxey reach this other level. And Maxey looks incredible. And I want to believe that Maxey, this good dude, this good leader, who I believe Ramona Shelburne, I believe it was a couple days ago, kind of put out there, the organization looks at as the face and the franchise of the team now. No longer Joel Embiid. They are looking at Tyrese Maxey as the guy here. I want to believe that Tyrese Maxey is the same kind of good dude who then turns around, takes VJ Edgecombe under his wing. And VJ Edgecombe is, it appears, a very hungry, determined, driven young player. And I want to believe that those guys, along with Jared McCain and maybe Quentin Grimes if he re-signs, I want to imagine that like that guard depth is going to be ultimately what leads you to that next level. I still have no idea what we're ever going to get from Joel Embiid or Paul George. I don't think anybody does. Anybody who tries to tell you that they know exactly what they're going to get is lying. But man, it feels good, if nothing else. It feels good to know that you have a bona fide stud superstar guard that you can build around. I have been saying this for a long time. I watch Tyrese Maxey play. I watch him finish at the rim. I watch him finish through contact. I watch him finish at full speed. And I have consistently said for years, to me, Maxey is the best guard finishing at the rim since Allen Iverson, at least in a Sixers uniform. He's that damn good. We have now seen Tyrese Maxey take his game to another level where it's not just the finishing. It is the overall ability at any given point to find his shot anywhere on the court and make you pay. He is the best scorer, the best pure scoring guard on the Sixers since Allen Iverson, bar none. And if he continues to take his game up the next few years, there is a potential MVP case to be made for Tyrese Maxey. Now, the Sixers played the Wizards and the Wizards stink. And it's good to get a win. And it's good to get to 2 games over 500 instead of falling to 500. I'm not getting too high on the Sixers right now. There are a lot of question marks. We knew this going into the season. But man, it feels good to see a guy like Maxey continue to just churn out 30-plus point performances night in and night out, and does it in a way that isn't selfish and does it in a way that gets his teammates involved. And so we tip the cap to Tyrese Maxey. Now, let's talk about the Philadelphia Flyers, okay? Because that's also a very important thing that we have to get to, okay? Philadelphia Flyers. We'll be talking about them all night over on Snow the Goalie Radio and then at the Press Row Show. The number one story to come out of Monday's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins isn't that Dan Vladar had a bad game. It isn't the fact that the Flyers kind of got boat raced. It isn't the fact that the Flyers no-showed in a lot of ways. It's that Tyson Foerster went out. And Foerster wound up for a shot, and as he took the shot, immediately he let go of his stick and grabbed his arm, grabbed his shoulder. And you watch that and you go, is that a shoulder separation? Is there a rotator cuff tear? Is there something with the labrum? Like, what was it? What happened? And what we learned since Monday night is that Tyson Foerster is going to be out 2 to 3 months. And that's according to Danny Briere. 2 to 3 months for Tyson Foerster. That is a horrific hand to be dealt because Foerster did appear to be poised for a breakout year. And to this point, I felt like he was having a borderline breakout year. Like, there was a potential path to see Tyson Foerster be a 35, maybe even a 40-goal scorer on this team. He's been that good for them this year. And all of that comes with him missing time during camp and missing time through the offseason because of that infection in his arm, his elbow, whatever. So it's a shame to lose him. And at the same time, you go, okay, and I'm going to try to spin this in a positive direction here for a second. Not because I'm a shill. I'm pointing this out because I think that there's actually a little bit of a positive to take away from it. Foerster looked like he was on path to go 35, maybe 40 goals. We always talk about the fact that this Flyers team has a lot of wings, and in the farm system, right? In the minors, they have a lot of wings. Denver Barkey, Alex Bump, eventually coming from college. You'll also have Porter Martone to add to the mix. Well, Barkey got a lot of praise when Danny Briere was on the Press Row Show on Monday night. Alex Bump has gotten a lot of praise as well. Now, I know a lot of fans thought as soon as Foerster got announced as being out for a few months, that the Flyers were then going to bring up Alex Bump because we heard all throughout the offseason how excited the Flyers were about Alex Bump. At the end of last season with the Phantoms, they were excited about Alex Bump, about how there was an outside chance that Alex Bump could make the team, and that if Tyson Foerster had missed the start of the season, that Alex Bump might have been in contention to have a spot on this Flyers roster. I don't think they're bringing up Alex Bump yet. In fact, we know that they didn't, right? They made another call up, and it's not Alex Bump, and it's not Denver Barkey. It's a short-term fix. I will actually go out to something that was said the other night over on the Press Row Show, because to me, the smartest thing the Flyers could do right now is give a look to a guy who I think has earned playing time and should be getting more playing time. And that is none other than Nikita Grabenkin. Okay? Now, again, you're not replacing that goal scoring with Nikita Grabenkin, but I'm going to go out to what Danny had to say to me and to Anthony over on the Press Row Show on Monday night when he was asked about Grabenkin's playing time. And unfortunately, this quote did not age well from Danny because he kind of knocked on wood about the health. This is pregame. This is before the injury happened. But I want you to listen to Danny Briere and then tell me that I'm crazy about Grabenkin maybe getting a look.
Been a lot of talk about him. He's been in and out of the lineup, back in now. What have you seen from him, and where do you like where he's at with development, and how do you feel like you guys can best manage him going forward? Because he's ultimately probably a little bit more than a guy who should play 8 minutes a night, I would think, right?
Well, we hope so,
Right.
but you never know, right? It depends how the players has to at some point take the ball and run with it too. He's almost in a kind of a 10th forward role at the moment. And we've been lucky, knock on wood, with injuries. It's been a good season that way. But I could see him being the next guy if someone gets hurt up front in the top 9.
Now, here's the tricky part. Danny, as the GM, really shouldn't then turn around and tell Rick Tocchet how to do his job and how to make the lineups. That's a very Ron Hextall thing to do. Danny should not do that. And at the same time, we now hear exactly from the GM that when it comes to Gurbankin, he thinks that if there were to be an injury, Gurbankin would deserve a look. Make of that what you will. See what the lineup looks like tonight. I don't know yet. All right, back to Danny.
You're trying to get him ready for that. There's been a lot of teaching with him. The language is obviously a little bit of an issue here and there. But he's learning. He's getting better. The coaches are working with him on the proper routes and proper position. Feels like it's not something that never anybody seemed to spend a lot of time with him on that stuff. So, no, they're working with him. I like the progression, but we have to be a little bit more patient. He's still young, but eventually, yes, we have higher hopes than a fourth line for him.
I imagine that it's a balancing act.
Right, we don't need Russ Inception here, but that part to me was really interesting because one of those things that we've just kind of like heard, and that some people that work for and around the team have also kind of noted, nobody really wants to go on the record with it, is that there's this thought out there that Tocchet doesn't look at Gurbankin as being a fourth line player. And so he doesn't want to like cram Gurbankin into being a fourth line guy if he thinks that he could actually be a third liner. Now, my question is, if that's true, then why not shake things up a little bit? Why not put Gurbankin on the third line and push a third liner down to the fourth line? Like, I love Bobby Brink. I think Bobby Brink is a wonderful player for this team. Would I be opposed to Bobby Brink getting a few shifts in, a few games a week on the fourth line so that we can see what Gurbankin looks like on the third line? No, because in the midst of a rebuild, I'm fine with you tinkering with lineups as much as you want. I'm fine with a coach trying to get a look as much as he can with guys up and down the lineup to try to figure out what is a player's ceiling actually going to be. And that might be a controversial take. I know. The Brink and Tyson Foerster line was incredible to start the year. It cooled off a little bit. I know people don't want to think about any of those guys being a fourth line guy, but it does still stand. Like, listen, if Gurbankin in their minds is a third line guy, well, then I hope he's going to get a look here on the third line. I am not actively pushing for or promoting the idea that Nikita Gurbankin should be a top 6 forward on this team. That's insane. But as a third line guy, getting 12 minutes a night, 11 minutes a night, I would certainly like that more than Nikita Gurbankin, the fourth liner, getting 7 to 9 minutes every fourth game. And I think for his development, Foerster's injury, unfortunate as it is, maybe gives him a little bit of an inside track to getting his career up and running. And by the way, it could also go the other way. If Gurbankin gets a look and he underwhelms, well, then guess what? I think it's actually made your decision as a coaching staff easier, and probably from an organizational perspective, has made your decision easier. Well, then you send Nikita Gurbankin down to the AHL to build his confidence up, and then maybe if there's an injury later in the year, you bring him back up. And in the meantime, maybe you can shuffle a Denver Barkey up here if you feel like he's really playing at a high level. If and when you feel like Alex Bump is ready to make that jump to the NHL, well, then he's ready. From what I have heard, Alex Bump is not a guy they consider to be ready this moment. It doesn't mean that that'll be the case at the end of this week. It doesn't mean it'll be the case in 2 weeks. It just means that right now, if they truly, truly believed in Alex Bump as being an NHL-ready player, he would have been the first call-up, and he wasn't. So that tells me that there's at least a slight disconnect between what fans think should happen and what the organization thinks should happen. And I say all of that while also acknowledging this organization is very high on Alex Bump. So this isn't a thing where like they're not calling him up because they don't think he's a good player. They just, for whatever reason, don't think he's ready. I'm not going to argue it because I don't know. I'm not watching the Phantoms games. Maybe I should. And then I could give you a more fair and well-rounded take on Alex Bump, the player. Now, all of these conversations, all of these topics, all of these points, we will dive into them. Because again, tonight we have 2 shows over on the Snow the Goalie channels. 5 o'clock in South Philly at Chickies and Pete's, right down the road from the Xfinity Mobile Arena. We will go live at 5 o'clock with Snow the Goalie Radio. You can call into the show. We'll have the phone number over there as well. That streams on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And then at 7 o'clock, we'll do pregame, the Press Row Show pregame, Flyers versus Sabres, live from the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Puck drops at 7:30. So you get a double dose of Snow the Goalie and hockey talk tonight. So a big thank you to everybody who dropped some stuff over here. I saw Miller, Brad Miller said, I'm excited to see how the team comes out tonight after the loss and the injury to Tyson. I think they are like 6-0-1 following a loss this year, which is refreshing. Amadeo says Brink hasn't been good beyond being separated from Tyson Foerster. Greg Bondarenko says, I'm eagerly waiting for the youngsters to join the Flyers like Bump, Barkey, and Bonk. Bonk is just now joining the Phantoms. You're not going to see Bonk for a while, if anything. Brad also says Grunstrom has the NHL experience and was the smart call-up right now. I agree with that. So anyway, we'll be back later tonight. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Go subscribe to Snow the Goalie. And of course, you're here on the Russ Joy Show, so do me a favor. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified every time a new episode drops. If you see short-form content on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, give that a like as well. Maybe even follow those accounts if you don't already. And if you like the podcast, you can certainly go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star rating over on Spotify. You can also leave a comment, believe it or not, on specific episodes on Spotify, and I'll see them. I can even respond to them. Or you can go over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and a 5-star review. Both of those are very, very helpful. It gets the show seen by more and more people. So if you can, thank you. There's also this thing on YouTube that I don't totally understand calling hyping. There's like a hyping the video thing you can do, which apparently like the YouTube algorithm, I got a thing from YouTube. And it's like, if people hype your episodes, it's going to like increase the visibility to more people who are looking for things like your show. So if you can, I guess find that hype button somewhere. I know it's on desktop. I think it's on mobile as well. If you can, hype up the show or whatever, and I would greatly appreciate it. So big thank you to everybody who joined me live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Big thank you to everybody who listens after the fact in the podcast feed. Until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll talk to many of you tonight on Snow the Goalie Radio and the Press Row Show. Until Friday, have a great day.